It's 9 o'clock. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
This meeting of the Morrison County Board of Commissioners here on March 22nd. Gentlemen, we have an agenda in front of us.
Make a motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Lemire
Second.
and a second by Commissioner Jelinski to approve the agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion prevails. At this time, we will start the employee recognition.
Brad. Too late, no.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. I'll ask Tony and Jeff to come up, and then Shannon. I don't see Shannon here. She was upstairs. I don't see her, but I'll have you introduce Tony.
Yes. Good morning, Commissioners. This is Tony Booth. He is our newest team member for the Adult Mental Health Team in the Adult Services Division at Morrison County Health and Human Services. He started near the end of January. It's been a challenge with some obstacles, but he's still here. We're very excited that he's still here. And I know I was here about a month ago. He couldn't make it in due to circumstances, so he's with us now. He's ready to get rocking and rolling. He's been rocking and rolling for a while, so.
Welcome.
Welcome, Tony. Thank you for being here this morning.
And this is Shannon McGowan, and she is a new social worker in our agency as well, and she's actually gonna be doing the clinic social work position over at the hospital, and she does come with some pretty good experience working in the healthcare field, so excited to have her as well. This is her second day, so she's still trying to figure out where to go in the courthouse.
So I'm assuming you both have your speeches ready?
I told her to interpret a dance.
Since it was only her second day, I thought I'd save that till next week for
Yeah.
for Shannon.
Excellent, excellent.
Welcome aboard.
Welcome, Shannon. Welcome, Tony. Thank you both for being here.
Okay, we're up.
Mr. Chair, members of the board, we'll now move into the years of service recognition. Today, approximately 37 county employees will be recognized. Over 430 years of service to this county, which is impressive to say the least. So first and foremost, on behalf of the residents of Morrison County and the commissioners, thank you for what you do. Thank you everybody for being here today. I spent a lot of time going around to the other counties and talking to my counterparts. They're not in the same position that Morrison County is in. They're short COs, they're short dispatchers, they're short deputies, they're short truck drivers, they're short social workers, they're short across the board, and we're just not there. We're in a good position because of the folks in this room right here. The people is the soul of the organization, and that's what matters the most. So I thank you all for that and for sticking with us. Today is an exceptional day because we're looking at those that have committed 5 years or more to their positions. And that really is something special. To come to an organization and stay with the organization has a lot to do with the leaders, and it has a lot to do with the organization as a whole. But really, it's up to the individual whether or not they want to stay there. And most of you that are here today are going to be walking through here, and I appreciate seeing some supervisors here that came to support. Thank you. Thank you for that continuity, that direct and indirect leadership that you provide. For a guy here who's probably one of the newest on the team, I'm telling you that I'm reaping the benefits, and I'm grateful and thankful for all that you do. So without further ado, we'll start with those receiving 5 years. Scott Hanfler. Vic Wetzel. Congratulations.
Congratulations, big guy.
Dan Lee. Dan's not here, he's fixing some computers. Jamie Boat.
Thank you.
Scott Drong.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your service.
Angela Treston. Sorry, Angela Treston.
Thank you, Scott.
All right, too fast. Brett Felbaum. Brian Scherz.
Already. Thank you.
Thanks.
Where's that time going? Congratulations. Thank you, Brett.
Jill Turwick.
Very much.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Tina Gretzky.
Congratulations, thank you. Thank you.
Awesome, great job. Amy Wall.
Thank you very much for what you do.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you.
Charlotte Hurd here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amy.
Miss Julie Lemire.
Thank you. Thank you, Amy.
And her other half.
History.
Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner. Congratulations.
Thank you, Matt.
Well, thanks, Mike. Good to see you.
Is that it? Your last one?
That's it.
And Tabitha Maher. Tabitha. All right, going up there. Please give a round of applause. All right, commissioners, assume your
Now we're gonna
position.
set.
So we get our exercise.
So Brian and Brett, you're center, so if you just scooch, keep scooching, put you right underneath that M there, Brian. Shift left a little, your right, my left. Okay,
Hands on desk.
there we go. Certificates. All right. 1, 2, 3, and again. All right, thank you.
Beautiful, thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations again. Thank you.
Please, hang out till we, finish this up. Okay, now for 10 years.
Yeah, right. She would rather punch than.
Mitch, Tavares, out on shift, patrolman. Miss Nicole Kern. Guess what, that's it, give her a hand.
Yes, we are.
Because we stand?
Yeah, I think so.
Why wouldn't we stand?
Yeah, in front of me.
You're in front. You get to be in front. This is all about you.
This is a lot.
Let's remember, all about Nicole.
Smile.
Big smiles, Nicole.
Oh,
Right,
I think
more time.
that's about this board.
All right, 15 years.
We could.
Happy.
Are you on ready?
It don't matter.
I don't know those delicate things. 15.
Sarah Pratt.
Thank you very much.
She's working.
Thank you, Jack.
John.
I know. And then
John Winsberg, my cousin. Great. All right, please give him a round of applause.
congratulations, thank you. John, awesome. Let's stand together, but you guys get to be in front. Okay.
Front row, right up in the front.
Here we are.
Oh, is Amanda here?
Really?
All right. Come on, please.
No, there's already through, I'm fine.
We have I just didn't know you were gonna
No,
make
I
it
know,
today.
that's fine, that's fine.
I can help escort her.
We'll take it.
All right, cheer on Amanda, come on.
With the flag here.
All right, we'll get you in the file. Okay.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Okay, pay attention. Photo.
Smile.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Another 15 to go, right?
All right, so obviously we tried to make this smooth and it's a little bit choppy, but, round of 20, Greg Shearer. Brian Post.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Greg.
Greg, thank you. Thank you.
Kimberly Lynch.
Thanks, Brian.
Brian, thank you. Thank you, sir.
Deborah.
Thank you very
Sherwood.
much. Thanks for the good job. 20 more to go.
Thank you.
Tanya
Thank
Reddy.
you very much. Thank you.
All right, please give a round of applause.
Thank you. Sitting on this one?
Yeah, I think so.
Tabitha says sit, so we sit.
After all, it is all about Tabitha.
But you guys are gonna have to shift this way. Here's the middle. Alright.
Is Kim in the middle? Okay.
Smile. Thank you.
Thank you all
Thank
very
you.
kindly.
Okay, 30 years of service, pretty remarkable. Tim.
Congratulations.
Peggy Zinni.
You only look about 30. Yeah.
Thanks, Tim. Appreciate it.
Brother, congratulations.
Brother.
Good job.
Tim, thank you.
Mary Fensky.
Thank you, Peggy.
Round of applause, please.
You guys can stand if you like.
Okay, we stand up for this one. You guys gotta be in front. Perfect. All right. Thank you both.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, all right. So just to do some housekeeping here, gentlemen, you, take a have your seat. See if I missed anybody else that snuck in the door. Penny Jacobson? Okay. Christy, Norton Lapos? Okay. Amanda?
Now she gets a picture all by herself.
Yeah. Okay. That should bring you real.
Ashley Shackle? All right. Jeff Johnson? Okay. Mark D? All right. More vowels and consonants. John Cole? All right. Heather Ray? Ashley Miller Felker. Okay. Anybody else on this? Perfect, thank you very much. 30s, 25s, and 20s, please file up behind the commissioners, and 5s and 10s and 15's up front. All right, Randy, let's get you set.
All right, tell me when.
Good.
This is it, folks. Center yourself.
Center yourself. Oh, we'll decide.
I think so.
Otherwise,
So that's later.
I think we gotta stand up to it.
Probably.
We should stand behind it.
Up we go.
Here, Mikey.
Should we, send your chairs down?
Yeah, it is.
Why don't we have them stand up so that
No, I can't.
they stand behind it?
I feel like county commissioner.
Absolutely, we are not a question. All right, we look sharp. Now just scooch it in, front row. Outside rows turn in toward the center. You have a 45, twist your shoulders. All right, if you can see me, I can see you. 1, 2, 3, and again, last one. Okay, thank you. One more round of applause.
Thanks, Tim. Thank you.
Thanks. See ya.
Well, now everybody let go.
You did a good job organizing that.
I'm gonna guess he must be a part-timer.
Yeah, up Southway. Oh, you did? Dad?
Wasn't for sure if that was
Thanks.
Is it?
No, that's a good idea. I think I,
think it worked out.
He must have
yeah,
been
it worked
sick.
out
Yeah,
better than I thought it was gonna.
90 years
I know,
old.
and he was a peddler kind of. He was more than 20 years
He was a cattle jockey. He was a, and
He
he
sold cattle too. Well, he did everything. He wanted furniture. He
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
We got retirements.
All right, good morning again, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Morning,
We
Brad.
are losing about 125 years of combined knowledge from our organization. Sad to see them go. Thrilled for what maybe comes next for them, and that's being a flexible schedule and sticking to it. So I'm going to start with the oldest first. I mean, the one that's been here the longest.
I was gonna say, Brad, whoa.
Lynette Gessel, who has been here since 1984. She started as a CSP worker, I guess, which I think was technically a KCA at that point, and then moved into social work, and has worked in our mental health world for all of that time, I believe, both adults and children's. So she has been a great member of our organization for a long time. She is now gonna go off and take care of some turkeys again and enjoy the farm life, relaxing. So Lynette, thank you so much for your service.
You're very welcome. It's been an honor to work for the county and serve the citizens. It certainly has been, so thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your service.
All right, next is Annette Messerschmidt. I think she's been here since 1988. Started as in home care, I think. And is currently a case aide in our agency and tries to keep track of all of the social workers and long-term care workers and make sure they're getting their billing in and all sorts of things. So she's been, again, another valuable asset, making sure that Our clients are served and the revenue comes in, two very important factors. So thank you, Annette, for your service.
World, but got grandkids, so.
There we go.
Good for you.
Next we have Rachel Barna. She's been here since 2000, I think. She came to us as a chemical dependency counselor. And so she worked with some difficult populations, did a great job. I think it was about 5 years ago, she was one of our first Min-Choice assessors and now has been doing that since. So she is going to go off and enjoy retired life as well and has done a great job for our agency. So thank you, Rachel.
I shared this with Annette here not too long ago, but ladies, you've earned this, you deserve it, now please enjoy it. So if you would come on up behind the commissioners, I'd like to take a picture.
You stand behind them since they got their picture.
Yeah, they should.
The chairs now?
We don't need to. They can stand in front.
Right here.
You gotta figure out where your center is.
Thank you.
I just go over. Come on in, you can be the center right there. There you go.
A little, and then shift a little this way.
Over here?
Yep.
Can you
Perfect.
hold your photo up, print
Hold
up
your
and
photos up.
let me know you're
Jeff, I
retired.
can't see your face.
Now?
There you go. And smile. Thank you.
One more time,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
We know. Thank you.
That's awesome. Not for the sister.
So you know her sister. Same age, huh?
Is this your mother or something? I was serious. It was not, was what it was.
Gentlemen, we're on our agenda, we're at the consideration of the consent agenda. I'd like to ask if any commissioner has anything that they would like to have pulled from the consent agenda for further discussion or look into. If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
There's a motion by Commissioner Lemire
Second.
and a second by Commissioner Wilson to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? If not, this is a roll call, gentlemen. Commissioner Wilson.
Aye.
Commissioner Lemire.
Aye.
Commissioner Wincher. Commissioner Jelinski.
Aye.
And the chairman votes aye. With all members voting aye, the consent agenda is passed. Next on the agenda, gentlemen, is the Great River Regional Library report. Good morning.
Morning, Karen.
Good morning, Karen.
An exciting day to come in. It's nice to see so many dedicated staff here in Morrison County. I'm Karen Punsack. I'm the Executive Director for Great River Regional Library. Historically, we've been coming to the county twice a year, once to present on library activities from the previous year, and then we come back at budget time. This is the time where we talk about all the great things that happened in 2021. In your packet, you'll see two documents. One is the year-end numbers and one is our annual report. Some of the things I'd like to highlight in that year-end numbers is digital library use. Since COVID has really taken center stage at Great River, it's not a surprise, but that growth continued in 2021, even as things started getting back to normal. So it is now our second largest circulating library statistically, and we continue to add investments there. At the same time, we also recognize there's some real value in our physical spaces. So in Morrison County, we've got 5 locations: Little Falls, Upsala, Swanville, Royalton, and Piers. And at the beginning of this year, as part of our 2022 budget, we added open hours in all 5 locations. And we added an additional open day in the Royalton Library. So those additional hours add up to an extra 13 hours a week across those 5 locations. And what we aimed to do this year is make those schedules a little more consistent and predictable for members of the public. So it looks a little different in each community, but we've added some morning hours. In Swanville, that schedule is a lot less erratic. Like it used to have a few mornings and a few afternoons, and now it's very consistent. So kudos to our staff who have made that happen. It's not easy to hire part-time positions in the current climate, and what we did is we asked our staff to take a look at what was realistic with the people that were there, and they added very few additional staff hours in order to accomplish it. So it was quite an effort, but it was well received by the public so far, and we continue to see that growth coming in the coming year. One of the other big things that happened in Morrison County last year is we had a major retirement in the Epsilon location. Wanda Erickson, if you're from the Epsilon area, is a bit of an institution there. She was not only the public librarian, she was also the school librarian. So it was big shoes to fill in June when she stepped down. So we have been, over the course of the years, rather than hiring part-time positions, trying to combine those positions within the region and offer benefits to people who are in those leadership positions. So last summer, Marissa George now is the Epsilon Library Services Coordinator. She also manages the Sauk Center Public Library, but she actually has community ties and had worked for the school there. So it was a great transition in Epsilon, and that's been going very well. Another big change last year, a year ago, we were still looking at how many people could be in a meeting room or in a space. So it's hard to believe that a year has passed since we were thinking about things quite that way. When you look at our overall circulation, though, it is almost at a normal level. Like we had 2.5 million items circulate in the physical library. What changed last year, though, and since 2019, when we went fines-free on juvenile materials, is more and more of our circulation is actually juvenile books. So we're up to about 44% of our circulation being juvenile materials, which is great. It tells us that we're getting books in the hands of kids, which was part of the reason we made that change back in 2019. The other thing that shifted since COVID is our computer usage is starting to come back, but we don't anticipate those levels will be quite the same. Regionally, that number was over 100,000 pre-pandemic. And I think a lot of people got devices over the course of the pandemic, but on the other side of that, one of the changes we made pre-pandemic is we added a service called Print to Go, which means you can come into the library with your phone or your laptop, and you don't have to use a library computer to print with the library printer. And so that's impacted the overall computer usage. That doesn't mean they're not being used. If you go into a location, you'll still see the regulars on there, the people who don't have good internet, the people who don't have devices, or the people who just need some help with the computer. So those are some of the things that happened last year. Another big initiative that happened January 1st regionally is we went fines-free on all materials across the whole region after we saw what happened with juvenile materials, and then looking at how fines revenue was trending with the increase in digital circulation and the shift to kids' books. It's become less of a reliable source of income, and then it's also costing us money internally to collect it. There's an opportunity cost associated with collecting 25 cents on a book. And so we took a hard look at whether we could give up that revenue, knowing that it's a less predictable source, and we chose to do that this year. Our hope is that everything will be a lot more accessible, especially those people with transportation issues. That doesn't mean people don't pay for lost books. If they don't bring the book back, they still have to pay for the book. And if they have something that's more than 10 days overdue, they're not allowed to borrow materials until that item is returned. So there's ways to collect. We will continue to bring our materials back into the library, but we found that this way of assessing fees and collecting fees was just inefficient and not a good way of providing library service as we go forward. We're not alone in the state of Minnesota. There's actually several other systems that have moved this direction. Great River is one of the leaders, but definitely not the first. So I just want to thank Morrison County for their support of the libraries. Here locally, Little Falls, you know, they continue to reach out to their schools. They do grade 1 at the library through a partnership with the Friends of the Library, and Cindy Bergenthes, who also manages the Swanville location, has begun to do that work at the Swanville School as well. So we're getting library cards in the hands of kids thanks to our local coordinators, and thanks also to our Morrison County Commissioner, Randy Winter, who continues to serve on the Great River Board. He's part of our union negotiations committee again this year and has been a great voice for Morrison County at our decision-making level. So if you have any questions about the library, I'd be happy to answer those. I just wanted to let you know all the great things that were happening across your county and appreciate the support that the county continues to give for those library services.
Karen, thank you so much for being here this morning. It's a pleasure having you here. Members of the board, comments? Commissioner Wincher.
And I'll only say my comment till last. Go ahead and let,
Commissioner Wilson.
I just want to thank you for all you do. I know all of our towns really appreciate the library in town, and I see a lot of people going through the doors when I go to the post office and stuff, and so I just appreciate that you are in all these small towns. Thank you.
Commissioner Wincher.
all right, anyway, last week we had a board meeting. This is a first. I sit on a lot of boards. And Karen was there along with our librarian from Royalton, and they have ukuleles that they bought here, over the last year or something like that. And this is the first time in a board meeting that we all sang a song to the ukuleles. Never had it before, so all of us Great River board members went along, and was This Land Is Your Land, I
Yep.
think it was, yeah. So just something different that we did, but I appreciate the ukuleles and the work that you do, Karen.
Thanks. Yeah, the ukuleles are actually a project that came through one of our fundraising campaigns. So it was fun to be able to have Terry present on that. She did a really great job.
That's fantastic. Commissioner Wincher, we're not going to ask you to carry that tune this morning, but we do recognize, and Karen, so you know too, Commissioner Wincher does an outstanding job in keeping this board informed about what's happening at the Great River Regional Library. Any other comments, gentlemen? If not, thank you, Karen.
All right.
I wish you a great day.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks, Karen.
Next on the agenda, Becky is here. We have the extension report.
Morning, Becky.
Good morning.
Good morning, Becky.
All right, just wanted to highlight a couple of items from the board report. Been doing some more programming, some more in-person programming, and it feels really good to have kids and adults into the government center for these activities. One of the things that I've been working on, and actually just finished up, is a 6-week-long fine arts program. Arts are kind of a passion of mine, and was very excited to be able to do this for 13 youth, and there were 2 adults there as well. And what we did is we learned about drawing, watercolor painting, and acrylic painting, and so kind of stretching those skills on what does it take to be able to draw, and not just cartoon figures, but looking at the different elements and principles of design and putting those together, and then doing those things. So we also provided drawing paper and art quality drawing pencils and paints and watercolor paper, so that youth could also experience the feel of fine art materials. And so it was very fun, very exciting. We did have to cancel one day because of weather, but we made that up, so that was great. Also, we'll just be starting a similar program, a 6-week-long photography class, so more on that to come. We've been working with a lot of animal science programming this time of year. Our Market Beef Animal ID was in February. Our annual animal science meeting usually talks about what's coming up, what's going on with the fair, schedules. We did a little rearranging. Some of our shows are getting kind of tight, and so in order to expand some time in between shows and make it flow just a little bit easier, we did rearrange a dairy goat show to the beginning of Thursday, and that'll give our general livestock show a little more time. It's one of our biggest shows. And so also looking at our rate of gain contest will be going again, helping youth with market animal species to think about how they're gaining, what they could do differently with feed or other like for instance worming or that sort of thing to get a better gain, and then projecting out where will that gain take them, what is their animal going to weigh at the county fair. And if they provide feed information, we also do look at pounds of gain per pounds of feed. So lots of management materials that they can utilize and go forward with in their project areas. And then one other programming thing that I've been doing is some county project nights. We did those pre-COVID, and these are our first ones back again. And so we had a crafts night, and tonight we're doing exhibits and displays, so helping families kind of learn about how to put together a 4-H display and what a judge might be looking for. And then next month we'll be doing a gardening one in coordination with the master gardeners are going to be there to help us with that one. So.
Very good. Gentlemen, questions, comments for Ms. Moe this morning?
I have a question.
Commissioner Wincher.
Night gardening, I see that's coming up in April. What do you guys do at night gardening? It says County Project Night Gardening.
Oh, it's County Project Night / gardening. I was like, oh, did I have a typo? I'm not sure what we do at night gardening either.
Oh, so yeah, you can garden.
Love it. Why not?
There we go.
Yeah,
Maybe we started something new.
we might have. I'll check with the master gardeners and see. Maybe we can,
Commissioner Jelinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Becky, are the 4-H'ers excited about the fair? Are they got new ideas? What's to come at the fair? And I don't know, I don't mean to put you on the spot, if you care to comment.
So so we're talking about, expanded shows, more kids, more animals, takes more time, and rearranging the schedule. Also looking at the auction. That's become something of quite a bit of interest to families. Last year was our 3rd year of an auction. Of course, the year before it was kind of more of a donation type institution. But that's really gained some momentum, and there's a lot more people that are interested in being a part of that. It requires some dedication and some work, but also just, having youth coming to these meetings and, they're getting excited about things. We did have a committee at our Federation meeting formed to look at increasing the number of exhibits at the county fair. Not necessarily livestock, because they've been on a good roll, but looking at static projects in the 4-H building. And so there's just a lot of excitement, really, truly, around 4-H and creating projects and showing them off at the fair to the public. So.
Outstanding. Thank you.
Commissioner Wilson, do you have any?
Just thank you for all you do.
Yes, thank you, Vicki.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You do the same.
Next on the agenda, Land Services. Jean, good morning.
Good morning, Jean.
Morning.
Good morning, Jean.
Thank you. So I just wanted to update you on some of the increases that we'll be seeing countywide through the valuation notice that we will be sending out. Just wanted to start with a little bit of the sale process that we do to come up with some of these numbers. We start October 1st of 2020, and we go through September 30th of 2021. This is a mandated time frame where all the qualified sales are then compiled and studied to determine if there's a market change for the 2022 assessment payable in 2023. Qualified sales are between a willing buyer and a willing seller, and they act as the best interest of themselves. The sales are grouped into similar property types, use classification, individual townships and cities. We look at, within each area, the median ratio must be between 90 and 105%. To figure out the ratio, you take the estimated market value and you divide it by the sale price, less any personal property, finance adjustment, or add any time trend that the Department of Revenue provides to move that sale forward to January 2nd of 2022. The ratios are then aligned from high to low, and the middle or median sale must fall between 90 and 105%. If the median ratio falls outside of this range, we need to adjust those markets up or down accordingly. We had 41 qualified agricultural bare land sales with a 72.48% median ratio. And that indicates our markets need to increase. Values were adjusted to reflect the new median ratio of 94.29. We had 28 qualified rural vacant land with a 73.41 ratio, which indicates that our market needs to go up. Values were adjusted to reflect a new median ratio of 94.48. We had 54 qualified agricultural bare land sales and improved land with a 72.51 median ratio, indicates that our market needs to increase. Values were adjusted to reflect the new median of 94.29. Any property that was enrolled in Green Acres and or Rural Preserve will see a benefit this year for 2022, assessment payable in 2023. We had 351 qualified residential seasonal sales with a 75.28 median ratio, which indicates that our market needs to increase. Values were adjusted to reflect the new median of 94.2. The necessary changes to comply with the Department of Revenue. We had 15% of Morrison County's residential seasonal property increased about 10%. 20% of Morrison County's residential seasonal property will increase 15%. 32% of Morrison County's residential seasonal property will increase 20%. 21% of Morrison County's residential seasonal property will increase 25%. And 2% of Morrison County will see an increase of 30%. Leading the townships and cities with the strongest sales with an increase of 25% or more are Little Falls Township, Motley Township, Pike Creek, Platte, Ripley, Scandia Valley, Pierce City, Randall, Royalton, Swanville City, Upsala, and Little Falls City. We had 6 qualified commercial sales with a 95.2% median ratio, which indicates that our market is within the guidelines. A 5-year history indicated that apartments, mini storage, and industrial properties were low and needed to be increased. The percentage that are given are an increase will depend on individual properties. Some of them will increase more or less depending on specific characteristics of the property. Tax statements and valuation notices are planned to be mailed out sometime before March 31st. I will also be running a press release because of the changes, the increases, to try to explain to property owners why the increase happened and how we go about determining what those are. That should be in this week's record, Morrison County record. I have attached a map. And what we did was just because we knew that we were, us as individual counties were looking at such a high increase, we wanted to see what that looked like with surrounding counties. And it looks like everyone in the central part of Minnesota is seeing the same. I'm assuming this is statewide. Everybody's a little different, and, really keep in mind that these are averages, that there's not really a way to come up with a good average. So there's so many moving parts when you're valuing property that it's very difficult. If you change one number, you can come up with a value, but if you change multiple things, it's hard to come up with that value. Questions?
Gentlemen, questions for Ms. Pop, who dubiously holds one of the toughest positions within county government. And I'll also state too that a lot of the work that she has to perform is really outside of her hands and is induced by what state statute instructs her to do. With that, gentlemen, comments. Commissioner Lemire.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think there's a lot of misconception out there on valuations, on how you get to that number. But when you figure your valuations, do you have to send a sample amount to the state auditor's office to see if we're within that range? Or what happens if you wouldn't be in that market range? What happens?
Well, first, when we work through our sales, we work through them throughout the year. Those sales are, after we're done with it, we qualify, unqualify, depending upon what what specifics were. And then then they're sent to the Department of Revenue. So they oversee that, they send us a sheet at the end that says, this is what your median ratio is. You need to have these within that 90 to 105. If I did not make those changes, the Department of Revenue would come in and give me a blanket increase. So for instance, like in Scandia Valley, we have several different lakes. I have enough sales to indicate that I can do a neighborhood sales study on each one of those lakes. If the department came in, they'd just say, okay, everybody in Scandia Valley is going up 10%, 20%, 30%. So you don't have those little areas where you can make adjustments. If I have, we've got a lot of areas where the Mississippi runs through. Some of those properties, sometimes they're very strong this year. They're gonna come in and say Little Falls Township, Bellevue Township needs to go up just due to, you're not in that median. They're not looking at that specific like I'm looking at that specific neighborhood.
Thank you very much for that explanation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're
welcome.
The other thing that kind of started with your conversation as well is that because we're going up sometimes 30% and sometimes more, depending on what the situation is. We may have a property that's going up 30%, but it happened to, the property, we did quintile that year, and all of a sudden, they made some changes, we're gonna take away some depreciation, we're gonna, increase their grade. That's gonna bring that value up even a little bit more. So they did some changes that's gonna go up. That means that property might go up 40%. So that's why I'm talking about individual characteristics are gonna do that. But everybody sets, their levies, the county, the school districts, the cities or townships. If their levies are similar, everybody's values are going up. That doesn't mean your taxes are going up by 30%. We've had it where we've increased values and sometimes the taxes go down. I'm not saying that's going to happen because everybody's levy does change. So there's a lot of things that go along with the tax part of it, but because values are increasing and they're increasing all over throughout the board or throughout the county, doesn't mean that necessarily taxes are going to increase by a large amount.
That's a good point, Mr. Chair. Because if your valuations go up 30%, that doesn't mean your taxes are going to go up 30%. The average.
Right, and the county sets their levies, so they're not getting more money or less money because the values are going up or down.
Thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
We could also interpret that as saying that Morrison County has been a great location to invest in property and or real estate when we look at the value of that investment increasing by this margin, especially with your previous comment that does not necessarily mean that taxes are going to increase on that property. So
Correct.
From an investment standard, Morrison County looks to be a very desirable place for residential, business, or agricultural development here.
Correct. Our agricultural land went up anywhere from, a majority went up between 10 and 20% of ag land. So that's.
I also recognize too in your report there where we're forced, the state's telling us we need to make, State Department of Revenues telling us we need to make an adjustment to get into that 90 to to 105 range. But we're holding that in that low 90s, so we're being responsive to property owners, and in an effort of fairness, or I shouldn't say, fairness probably isn't the right word, but recognizing that we don't need to be over 100%
Right.
in that range also.
And I'm the type of person that I, generally speaking, am about a 98, because there's a lot of things that happen that will cause some of this to adjust. So I don't want that. I'm usually about that. We're supposed to be at 100%. This year with the increases, to get from 94 to 98 even is an additional percentage increase.
Yeah.
So yeah, trying to hold it down a little bit, but, like I said, the taxes, the implication of the taxes, we had this year probably double the amount of sales that have taken place in Morrison County over the last 20 years.
Phenomenal. Commissioner Wincher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I appreciate you sent that little thing of all the townships, and I'm looking at on my cell phone of each of the increases. Of course, I look at my district, but throughout the whole county. So what drives this mostly, is it because of the sales? If I'm an ag producer or I'm sitting out in the city of Little Falls or whatever, it's the sales that drive this. I'm assuming if it was valued at 75,000, just pulling that out, and now it sells for 125,000. The question I have is, normally, doesn't the taxes, though, follow the valuation? Because the fact that, why are we raising the valuations? To raise people's taxes. I'm just
Yes,
putting that
yeah.
out there. So that's kind of how it is, because I know personally, you look at most evaluations, they're less than what somebody would want to sell their place for. But you know what I'm saying? So if it's
Right.
valued at 100, you want to sell it for 100? Well, no. But then, doesn't it follow the taxes eventually? Property taxes?
Well, because they're two, yes, but they're two separate issues. The valuation comes, and then everyone sets their levies. So basically what it is it comes down to your piece of the pie. What are you going to be, what percentage are you going to be paying?
And that's not just the county, it's the cities, it's the
That's
townships,
everyone.
it's the schools.
And that's Minnesota, that's driven in
Because
Minnesota.
I
in the
consider
whole
myself
state of
normal,
Minnesota.
I don't look at the valuation, the first thing I do is look at how much my taxes are. And that's,
Absolutely.
you know, so.
Yep. And unfortunately, when we're looking at our valuations for this assessment, it's not payable until next year. We don't know what that's going to do to the taxes, because the levies for the 2023 taxes aren't set until the end of the year. So we can't really say that they're going to, increase, decrease, or change a lot or not much, so.
Thank you.
Commissioner Wincher, this is that great example and that discussion about understanding that the knife cuts both directions here. Every property owner wants their property to have value and have increasing value, but they also don't want to have to pay any more in taxes every year. Commissioner Wilson.
Gene, can you tell me, like school districts, when you have a bond referendum, if it's $500, does that go by percentages? Is that based on this at all? Of value?
That's really auditor treasurer, and I can't,
Okay.
I don't have an answer for you, I'm sorry.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments, gentlemen? Jean, thank you
Yes.
especially for explaining this for us and for the public.
And just a last note that, we will be receiving phone calls. We try to handle as much as we can. However, some people do go to the county commissioners, administrator, whatever. If you need answers, call our office. If they need it, if you want to send them to us, either way, we're willing to, talk to people and explain things.
Sounds good, thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
Thanks, Gene. Thanks,
thank you.
Gentlemen, we're at the auditor's report on our agenda. Good morning, Chelsea.
Morning, Chelsea.
Morning.
Morning, Chelsea.
Since Jean left off a great topic, I just thought I would give you a reminder that our tax statements are going out by the end of the month. One visual difference, since we switch vendors, is normally our tax statements would come in this larger envelope, and since we switch vendors, they will come in a regular size standard envelope. So just for visual, for you to know, they will be coming out soon. And then just to follow up with Commissioner Wilson's question for the school districts and how they set their levy. They can set their levy, if they have a referendum and it didn't pass, they can set their levy based on the request. So, and then that amount would then be shared on that school district for taxes based on values of the property.
Values.
Yep. So again, coming to that piece of pie and then your value in that pie.
Sounds good, thank you.
All right, so first on the agenda I have today, I'm requesting approval of a revised ACI agreement. So if you recall, within probably the last month and a half, I came before board for our online property tax payments for debit, credit card, and electronic check. We had a lower rate than what we had, and so we had approved that agreement. However, I had to try and negotiate a lower rate if I could, but I didn't hear from their legal team for quite some time. And so I wasn't holding my breath because we were already getting a lower rate, but it did come back where they honored my request. So the changes for the revised would be lowering the fee or cost to the debit credit card users. The reduction would go to 2.35%, which is a 0.35% decrease of what was in the agreement prior.
So moved. Lowering is good.
We have a motion by Commissioner Wincher and a second by Commissioner Wilson. Further discussion? Further discussion?
Good job.
Further discussion? Seeing none, gentlemen, let's do a roll call here. Commissioner Lemire?
Aye.
Commissioner Wincher?
Aye.
Commissioner Jelinski?
Aye.
The chairman votes aye. Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
With the entire board voting aye, the motion prevails.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, I have an annual resolution that's before you for the county to be a sponsor for the Morrison County Recreational Trails Association for fiscal year 2022 through 2023 in coordination with the county and club trail agreement. Again, this is a sponsorship, so we are the fiscal agent. We receive the funding, and then we push it forward to the association.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chair.
We have a motion by Commissioner Lemire and a second
Second.
by Commissioner Wilson. Further discussion? Further discussion? Further discussion? If not, gentlemen, it's a roll call. Commissioner Wincher? Commissioner Jelinski?
Aye.
The chairman votes aye. Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Commissioner Lemire?
Aye.
With all those voting in the affirmative, the motion prevails. Chelsea?
Next on the agenda, I'm requesting approval to do banking business with Magnify Financial, which is formerly known as Central Minnesota Credit Union. All the other banks on the list have been approved in January, and again, any new relationship with banks not on the list will be brought forward to the county board for approval prior to obtaining new banking relationships. I have also attached the letter from the CFO, and I highlighted the portion that states why they're changing the name. They were Central Minnesota Credit Union. They are changing their name to Magnify Financial because their name really dedicated to the central of Minnesota. And if you look, they're expanded, not just in central Minnesota. And then they did assure that no bank account numbers would be changing and it's not being bought out, if you will.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Jelinski a second by Commissioner Wincher. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion prevails. Chelsea?
Next on the agenda, I have a request for approval for the annual audit engagement letter from the Office of the State Auditors to conduct Morrison County's 2021 audit.
Gentlemen,
So moved, Randy.
we have a motion by Commissioner Wincher, a second by Commissioner Lemire, to approve of the internal audit. Further discussion? Further discussion? Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion prevails.
Thank you. That is all I have today.
Thanks, Chelsea.
Thank you, Chelsea.
Thank you.
Warrants? Oh,
That's part of the,
yeah, sorry.
Tony.
Tony, good morning. Gentlemen, Public Works Report. Mr. Hennon, thank you for being here.
Tony, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning, Tony.
Got a couple of clerical items this morning. So our first item on the agenda is to request to enter into a cooperative agreement between the Minnesota DNR and Morrison County for the Camp Ripley Veteran State Trail along Arkansas 35 in between Inca Road and 180th Avenue.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Jelinski, a second by Commissioner Lemire. Further discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Jelinski.
there's been a lot of work that has been done for a long time putting this program together. A long time. I'm ready to see it go through and be done. It's all baby steps, and I get it, but I'm ready for this to happen.
Yeah, this section of trail was actually let in December, so this actually probably should have been executed a little earlier. So I caught it when I was reviewing some of our items, so that's why it's up here in front of you today. It'll be a very nice trail when it's complete.
Commissioner Wincher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Tony, this is, in follow-up with Commissioner Jelinski, this is for ATVs and snowmobiles. It's not part of the bike trail.
Correct. This is mainly a motorized trail is what it's intended for.
Thank you for pointing that out, Commissioner Wincher. Further discussion? Further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion prevails. Tony?
Our second item here is a request to approve a resolution, and it's to relinquish a portion of right-of-way along CASA 34. So again, this is another clerical item. It actually stems back from 2019. In 2019, the county replaced a box culvert in CASA 34 just west of CASA 33. So a lot of times when we replace culverts, we have to expand right-of-way, and in those scenarios, we'll try to make a uniform right-of-way along a piece of property if it makes sense. In this case, the gentleman that we were purchasing right-of-way from had a variable right-of-way all the way out to 100. We set a uniform right-of-way width of 70 across his property, and that's what this resolution's for, to relinquish some of the right-of-way behind the right-of-way that we requested, just to give him a uniform 100, so you didn't have the jogs that you see on some of the roads.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Lemire, second by Commissioner Wilson to approve of the right-of-way. Further discussion? Further discussion? Further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion prevails.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Commissioner, that's all I have this morning.
Tony, thank you.
Have a great day.
Yep.
Thanks.
Gentlemen, we are at the administrator's report. Mr. LeBlanc.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. As discussed last week at planning, as we progress down the path of looking into the renovation of the historical courthouse, the request or the information presented last week was to move forward with Vetter Johnson in the design process of the the upgrades to the historical courthouse. So with that, what I bring before you today is a letter from the president of Vetter Johnson, who is also in attendance today, Mr. Tyler Johnson, explaining what would all take place in that next step, And I also have that same chart that we discussed at planning session that shows the breakout in this 6-phase process of the design of the upgrades to the courthouse. So this would be the schematic design phase, which would be 15% of the 11% of the overall project, with an estimated fee of $58,453. And this project would include a review of the project goals to begin to consider how to incorporate them into a building project, measuring and documenting existing conditions and draft digital floor plan and elevations, conduct existing building analysis, conduct preliminary code analysis, determine basic building systems and materials, engage mechanical, electrical, civil, and structural engineers, and develop a scope of work narrative, prepare basic schematic documents, include site plan, principal floor plans, elevations, and 3D illustrative sketches, and begin coordination of the approval process with the State Historic Preservation Office that we typically refer to as SHPO. As a reminder, at any phase, any step along this process, we can stop the progression of it we are not committing to the entire overall design work that needs to be done prior to the improvements of the historical courthouse. So today, Mr. Chair, I'm looking for approval to enter into the schematic design phase of this agreement.
Chair, I'll make a motion for consideration.
We have a motion by Commissioner Lemire and a second by Commissioner Jelinski to move forward with this process with the historic courthouse. Any discussion, gentlemen? Commissioner Wilson?
Yeah, I guess what I'm wondering about is the fee that is charged to do projects like this. You know, we're talking a percent. Was that 11% we were talking about?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
The question I have is, when building materials has gone up so much in the last year or so, a percentage is like, I think you guys know what I'm asking here. You know, why do the fees stay at 11% when building materials go up so much for the design cost?
Commissioner Wilson, I'm going to stop you right here, and John, would you like to bring our guests forward up here so we can have them comment and we can have this on the tape?
I only asked that before I approved this. That's why.
Commissioner Wilson, very well and very good. Mr. Johnson, and who else do we have here with you this morning?
Also Mr. Johnson.
Mr. Johnson,
Steve
Mr. Johnson, and John.
So
Mr.
Tyler
Johnson.
Tyler and Steve Johnson?
Yes.
Okay. And John, thank you for being with us this morning, too. Would either of you like to comment on the question by Commissioner Wilson this morning?
Yes, we put out a fee. At this point, a lot of what we've done in the past, Steve started the company in 1989. A lot of it is gut and understanding of what it takes to put a project together. This diagram is a good summary of some of the steps we see in every project, but there are also a lot of variables that are not seen in this diagram, which we're committed to helping you along with throughout that process. So it's, like we said, this is the starting point for getting through schematic design. We have got very little information right now about what this project is going to be. So this first phase is really about identifying all the constraints and the opportunities to move forward. So,
as Tyler mentioned, when we establish a fee for a project, he used the word gut feeling, and I think that might be appropriate in some ways. There are rules of thumb based on complexity of a project and also the scale of a project. If you remember, we did a fairly comprehensive project for you over the last few years, and it had a greater scale, but it was broken up into several phases that broke it down into a series of small projects as well. So we look at each project kind of individually in terms of the complexity, and with this project, the windows add a pretty significant amount of complexity, plus the fact that we're working not only within existing buildings, but the historic building, needing to work with SHPO and those folks as well as codes officials. We're only at a starting point, as Tyler said. So with that in mind, we're starting the project at this point, and that rule of thumb to do that relative complexity of work, we feel is that 11% range. Not quite sure how we would be able to adjust that. You know, we base it on the estimates of the construction managers. Construction costs do maybe go up over a period of time, so we would be using the recent estimate to establish our cost of services for work through this first phase that you're anticipating getting us started on. After that, a more detailed estimate will give them the opportunity to give us a better picture of what that is. Will inflation impact that and make that go up, Commissioner? We don't know yet, obviously, but we need to sort of start at some point using those kinds of rules of thumb that we do and see where that goes. Some of you may remember on the last project, we asked you when you agreed to lock in our cost of services at the design development phase, when Contegrity Group had a fairly detailed schedule, because that involves a lot of detailed work in terms of the design. And if you decide to move beyond schematics through DDs, we would like to do that again, because, you know, this kind of potential for inflation it makes it difficult for anybody to plan. So if we could lock that in at the DD phase, then you would know that if there's some inflation between that, while we're doing all the construction documents, that it would be locked in. And the benefit to us is we know what the fee is, and we're not sort of waiting for the bid opening day to determine what it is. But the construction, the percent of construction cost has just been a means by which we've established fees for decades, and within the industry as well as our firm.
I do understand that, but the way materials have gone up so much in the last 2 years, it seems like the percentage would go down, you know, because you're using a bigger number, but I just wanted to ask that question.
Yeah.
The other question I have is, if we were just gonna do windows, and maybe not the elevator right now, or if you do your work to tell us about an elevator and what it's gonna cost, if we didn't do the elevator for a couple years, would that make a difference in your work? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? If we waited 2 years to do an elevator, would I have to go through that process again on that elevator of what you did today?
A couple of things might affect that. First of all, we would have to do 2 separate bid documents as opposed to one that would go to your construction manager and then out to bidders. We would have to do that twice, you know, the ad for bids, the work that's related to that, breaking that into 2 phases. Secondly, we can't guarantee that there isn't going to be some kind of possible change in building codes that would have some effect on where that's located, or, you know, some part of the elevator that might be slightly different. So we would probably have to go back and confirm and adjust, but not a significant, in answer to your question, not a significant difference
Okay.
into phases.
Because I think what we're looking for here is we're looking at a fee of what it would cost to do an elevator, the windows. Was that it, or was there another?
Bathrooms.
And the bathrooms.
Right.
But if it comes in at $4 or $5 million and we say, now we're gonna pull this down to one thing or the other, that work that is already done just maybe needs to be adjusted somewhat, right?
Possibly. And again, I think we would know that after that design development phase. We'll have a lot more information after the schematic design phase, because Contegrity Group will be going from just basically some really rough sketches, you know, dating back to when we were looking, if some of you remember, a lobby along the south side of the,
Right.
in a connection. And Tyler and I have talked about this too. We take schematic design very seriously. We don't like to just kind of put some things out in there and adjust it during the design development phase and adjust it more. We want to make sure it's right, that we've met with the codes officials, that our consultants have all had their part in it, so we know that we're not backtracking. But that, I guess my point was, at the end of, having that kind of detail, by the end of schematics and certainly by the end of DD, I think you will know that, you know, except for some sort of unknown major circumstance, that you will be within the range that you're comfortable with. At the same time, bids are taken and you're still not comfortable, then the construction management process, if we put it together carefully, will allow you the ability to take a piece of that project out and proceed with the other parts of the project.
Commissioner Wincher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You were part of our remodel here 8, 9, 10 years ago. A couple of you board members weren't even sitting on here at the time when we made those decisions, and I think we did the right decision by remodeling this courthouse. With all that, again, we made an effort to utilize the old courthouse more, you know, but again, it just didn't become cost-effective to use the board room, to move the administrator room, or administrator there. It just didn't become cost-effective. And you state on, in one of the big, was the elevator. And I believe that you came back that we were gonna try to do a walk away from the old elevator, or the elevator now. It didn't work because of the windows. They're architectural, they're history, we couldn't do that. Do you still have them designs for that? Because I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, it would be on the east end of the courthouse where the elevator was gonna go, and that's where the steel things come out. Where are those architecture? Because I know, I can remember pretty much, that was like $1.5 million just to put the elevator in there.
Yes.
So where is that part of that? Are you gonna redo all that again just because of the fact, I don't know, I mean, if you could answer that, please?
Sure. I think that provides a basis for what we're going to be doing as we moved into the schematic design phase. It was very different. It was lined up to be connected with that lobby that isn't there now. And we talked about this. I think it might be appropriate as we place this to, again, always trying to think about flexibility for you and for future needs. It would be nice to look at and let you make a decision as to whether you want to have that designed in such a way that some future board could make a physical indoor connection, depending on what the use is. Because if those of you who were involved before remember, again, having an open-ended plan is always very important. You're landlocked here to a certain degree. So the open-endedness of this whole design was someday if other departments, maybe human services, need to grow and there's no room to grow, that administrators' offices and the boardroom will go somewhere else. And that would be in that building. So then would you want some way to maybe possibly in the future physically connect that so you don't have to go outside to do that? So that's one thing that we want to talk to some of you about and analyze as we're doing this. But then also, you've made some investments in parking lots that are a little bit different than they were then, so we need to factor that in as well. The earlier design was connected to the existing building, so the building codes aspects of it were a little bit different in terms of exiting the building because it was going to be one building all tied together and enclosed. So in answer to your question, we're going to be looking at those drawings, and Tyler actually has them here, but we're going to have to kind of start over with the codes and a whole variety of other things just to make sure we're.
And I appreciate that, Mr. Chair. I don't remember it being attached to the building, but that's, again, I'd like to.
A bridge,
look at
yeah,
that.
there was going to be a bridge at one time.
Yeah, I don't know, because I thought the bridge was stopped because of the windows, but again, I could be wrong.
Well, I think what you're referring to is on the south side of we call it the 1960s building where
Right. Yep.
DMV is. There's a link there that connects to that offset building. And I think originally when you guys put that elevator in, you think you could maybe go straight across.
Right.
I think that was
Okay,
that was
yes.
before us,
Right, yeah.
but I think that was
And that
the
wasn't part of
theory.
us either, but when we were looking at it, we determined, I think, level changes and things like that, because of course we got to comply to ADA to get you from that building up to that other building. Being that the elevator is in fact in this complex, we can't control where it's going to stop.
Yeah.
So I think that combined with how it would sort of, for lack of better words, jam into a very historic part of the building, it'd be complicated with the state preservation side of things as well.
It took a while for me to understand what you were
Yeah.
asking, Commissioner, but that, I do remember those discussions, because you've got that highly articulated north facade of that building and that bay window that bumps out, and this thing just kind of threatened to bang into it. Something that might have been, something maybe an earlier board and an earlier architect might have thought might be appropriate back in the sixties or seventies, but not the way we do it now, and not how SHPO would want to see it done.
And this was my last thought, this is more for John or maybe, so we're gonna be doing those 3 items, but what about the walls and the, you know, the plaster following, you know, for safety? If so, we're gonna, I mean, it's gonna be an ongoing, I brought up the furnaces and all that stuff. So this is more than likely gonna be an ongoing, adventure for the county to, you know, make this second courthouse that we have feasible. Is that right, John?
Well, yeah, the maintenance and maintaining it is always gonna cost you money, no matter what you, on that, so yeah, it'll be an ongoing cost.
Thank you.
Commissioner Jelinski.
Mr. Chair, in respect to Commissioner Wincher and to carry on with ongoing, we did the roof, we tuck pointed it, and now we're here. There's always, I agree with you, there's always something. The plaster's gonna fall off, or is falling off. Yep, that's another piece to maintenance, we gotta work on that. So I get that piece to it, I truly do, so. And the elevator, do you build it so it could one day connect? Do you build it in planning? You know, that's part of what you guys do, so I certainly really can't go anywhere with that, because if you're doing the drawings, it's not saying you're gonna connect these buildings, ever, but it may be conceptually, you can do that, and maybe you can't, and then that's okay too, so however that works out.
Yeah, we like to give you long-term options too,
Yep.
and I think that was probably the intent with that previous elevator addition, just maybe, you know, maybe codes changed, I don't know exactly all those types of things too, but
Sure.
we want to do the best we can to set you up for future decisions, and then, you know, really also having this side of this building available for expansion should you need it.
Yep.
Commissioner Blaine?
Commissioner Wilson.
I think where I'm going with all this, right now, I feel a little leery about how much money to spend with the price of everything so high. Will this here get me to a point to where I could say possibly that, hey, let's do the windows right now because they need to be done so it protects the courthouse, and elevator and other things will be set up so we know how they'll work, we'll know approximately what they'll cost, so I can make a decision based on that stuff instead of, I know we kind of committed $4 million to set aside, but we would discuss that at another time. And I'm just not sure that right now is the time to be building a lot of stuff because of the price of everything. And I may be totally wrong, but I know the windows are gonna need replaced regardless of when we do this, and it doesn't seem like they ever go down because that's kind of a specialty item that's in there. So, will this do that? Will that help me get to that good decision, or have I already made that decision?
No, I believe at the end of schematic design, after some more detailed estimates are prepared, you could potentially make that decision and tell us to move ahead and base the fee on only the windows, and then put the rest of the work on hold based on the preliminary design that will allow you to pull that out in a couple of years and have us work on that if you'd like.
Okay. Thank you for.
I don't think there's any commitment to any particular portion or scope of the project this early on.
And gentlemen, you know, my interpretation of this is that this schematic design will get us to maybe a more defined number in these 3 particular areas that we're looking at: the elevator, the windows, and the restrooms over there. And then we will continue to have discussion about, you know, how much heartache we have with things, or how much enthusiasm we have with each of these 3 parts of this project, as as we go forward. But it's hard, it's hard to find that feeling within each of us on that without probably taking this next step into the schematic design to get us to to maybe a little bit more defined area. Would that be correct?
And it's common after this schematic design phase, we want this number to be as close to whatever you have in your mind as your budget number as possible too. So we're gonna do what we can control, but there's some things, codes, we can't control, we just have to comply with that. And then how we approach this thing with the state, we have to really present them with all the best information we can, and then they have to make a determination as to some of these things. Specifically, windows can be quite complicated. Some of them can be replaced, some of them have to be repaired. It's really a case-by-case thing, which that kind of detail we don't have in this first round of numbers, so.
I think.
Further
maybe-
discussion.
I think maybe what I'm really asking here is, if we would know that our windows are gonna be $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, that would help me determine how far I wanna go out to design. I don't want you, in my eyes, I don't wanna design an elevator if I know our windows are gonna cost us $2 million already, and then I make that decision. So I guess I don't know that. If that's the step we need it, but that's where I know if I need windows in my house, I'm gonna replace my windows. If I got more money left, I'll replace the next thing. And if I don't, and that's where I'm just thinking that this stuff is so far out of whack right now that, but that's my discussion with, we haven't talked about that much yet, so.
Commissioner Wincher?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just moving forward, I will not vote for this design, just based on what we are learning here. And my other question, I would like to task our administrator, if possible, that we have 3 other nonprofits in there, maybe 4, and I think we could house them here, you know what I'm saying? So the reason I'm saying that is because if we could bring them here, and whatever it works, but then I'm gonna be on Commissioner Wilson's, do we really need that elevator then? You know what I'm saying? So maybe if we can, that's kind of where, that some of these things that, why should we task you to give us an elevator if we really don't need it, And that's where I'm looking at this. And I just think, because we have great organizations in there, maybe, we just remodeled this, we got plenty of room here that we could probably put them, but again, that's what I'd like to find out. But at this time, I would also look at, there's supply chains, that going forward. So if you do come with this estimates, is that gonna say, yep, the windows, we can get them here in 6 months or a year? I believe, again, I'm on board with that one. If you kind of demand these places to get their windows here quicker, it's gonna cost us more, So, and those are things that I would prefer to see. It's not a want or a need, it's just like, hey, let's be common sense here, and maybe we're spending this money that we really wouldn't need, because if we don't need an elevator, why should we even have them do that? So that's my thinking, so I think I'm good on this. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Further discussion. Commissioner Lemire, did you have a comment?
I'm just gonna say, whether you agree with we need an elevator or not, in order to get to that position, you need to get the schematic design completed. And I do believe we need an elevator in that building. I do believe the bathrooms need to be ADA compliant and the windows need to be fixed. I kind of like what Mike said, after this, we get the schematic designs and we get a closer number, maybe we have to only do one. Maybe we only have to do the windows to save the building, to prevent it from, we had snow in there this year. So I'm going to be supportive of this, Mr. Chair and Commissioners.
Commissioner Wilson?
Yeah, and I don't want to think that anybody's gone out of step here, because I think we voted on $4 million possibly to set aside to look at this stuff. So I know it sounds like I'm backstepping, I'm really not, but I just kind of want to understand, and I don't want to do any more than we have to do if we're not going to use it right away. And that's why it's important to me a little bit to know, like I say, what the window's gonna cut, because to me, that's the first thing that I need is windows in that building, to me, but I don't want to feel like that we're putting Matt and everybody under the bus here, because we did say, go ahead and look at this here, you know, and now it sounds like I'm backing down a little bit. But I'm just trying to say that where I'm really willing to go with this is, and to see how much things cost. I want to fix the old courthouse at some point in time. I just don't know if, go ahead, John.
I believe this will get you closer, each phase will get you closer. DD is gonna get you as close to the number to reality as you have.
Okay.
And we're gonna do schematic design first, which is a little less fee. In talking to Contegrity, he figured he could get pretty close. It won't be as close as DD design, but it'd be a pretty good number to move forward, to tell you guys if you wanna move forward or not.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. LeBlanc.
Just 2 points of clarification. One, I'm going to ask for Vetter Johnson, but the other to Commissioner Wilson's comment of putting $4 million aside. Just to clarify, what I believe the board voted on was to pursue the design work for a $4 million project. So again, we haven't committed any monies. It's just that mentally we've set it aside as this continues to progress, and so that we can abort this if we'd like to, and that money is still available. What was approved was to continue the design work of a $4 million project, which includes those three significant improvements of the bathroom, elevator, and windows. And then my point of request clarification of Vetter Johnson is at the conclusion of the schematic design, you will be able to, the board will be able to take any one of those three and pursue it without being contingent on the other two. Is that correct? So it can be sparsed out. We could break it back out. Although we are headed down a path to do $4 million, three project rework, at that moment, we could cut one or two of them from it and continue with what is approved.
That's correct.
Thank you for the clarification a little bit.
Yes, and I appreciate that too, Mr. LeBlanc, for clarifying this. Gentlemen, do we have better understanding of what we're looking at here? Further discussion. Further discussion. We have a motion by Commissioner Lemire and a second by Commissioner Jelinski to move forward with the schematic design and that fee of $58,453. Hearing no further discussion, gentlemen, this will be a roll call vote. Commissioner Jelinski.
Aye.
The chairman votes aye. Commissioner Wilson.
Aye.
Commissioner Lemire.
Aye.
Commissioner Wincher.
No.
The majority voting in the affirmative, the motion prevails.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
Mr. LeBlanc.
Mr. Chair, three items, and we'll close out my portion for today. I brought up at planning CTC doing a fiber project, and their project was a $200,000 project that I understood, with $150,000 of it is a Little Falls Township, and then potentially the other $50,000 involves our landfill and the airport. So I'll just want to focus on the $50,000 project for the landfill and airport. Obviously, there's a joint powers board at the airport, and we have our own landfill to take care of. What I've asked CTC to do was to uncouple those two projects, that they're not contingent upon each other, and I received word yesterday that they will do that. So we will continue our process with Public Works and IT as we look to pull fiber into the landfill, which again, as discussed in planning, our current provider is going to expire the 1st of July, so we need to bring those services in to maintain our level of support. The second is I received a message from Scott Marlin, who's one of our surveyors for the county, on a topic of PLSS. I'm sorry, any questions on CTC? Okay.
Gentlemen, no?
No.
PLSS, preserving the public land survey system. And that system helps our surveyor department, and Scott's request was that the county endorses some legislation that's going through right now and is actually being discussed this week. After consultation with our auditor treasurer, our recorder, and our land services director, they all are in approval of this legislation and are requesting county support to go for it. What it is it would be a $10 million a year funding through the year 2057. So that's about, I believe, 34 years that this funding would occur for the entire state of Minnesota, and that monies would go to the counties to fund the PLSS system and allow us to better surveying. So if there's no objection from the board, I will prepare correspondence and send to our state representative as well as our senator that represents this area.
Sounds good.
We need to make a motion.
Gentlemen?
Do you want a motion?
Any discussion to that? Do we?
I'll support it.
I don't think we need a motion here to do this. Mr. LeBlanc had asked me if I should be the person to be in contact with the legislators, and I said this is in his wheelhouse as our administrator and on behalf of the board. But I thought it was important that this be discussed before the board so we know and are aware of correspondence that is taking place on behalf of Morrison County with our state legislators.
Rock on.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. And the last item is just a reminder that 11 o'clock today, we will have a public hearing on redistricting, and I look forward to it.
Is there anything else, Mr. LeBlanc?
None from me, and pending any questions from the board.
Gentlemen, anything?
I will acknowledge Commissioner Wincher's project to look at housing of our nonprofit and not-for-profit partners, and to do a study of space to see if it's feasible, and I can come back to the board with that.
And if the rest of the board is good with it, then I would be, obviously I'd want support from everybody.
Thank you, Commissioner Wincher. Thank you, Mr. LeBlanc. Gentlemen, any comments on that? Anything? We'll wait.
I don't think you need to myself, but that's just my 2 cents.
We will, Commissioner Winchers has made that request. Mr. LeBlanc is willing to do the work to look into that. They'll report, or he will report back to this board on the findings and that. We can have a discussion on that at that time. Gentlemen, I'd like to move along here, enable to have a little break in between our board meeting and our public hearing. I'm looking to our chief clerk here for dates for our committee schedules coming up here. Tabitha?
March 27th through April 9th.
Commissioner Jelinski, would you help us out here?
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
April 29th, excuse me, March 29th, 8:30 in the morning, we've got a planning meeting. At 6 o'clock that evening, there's a Planning Commission Board of Adjustment meeting, and I believe there is a Planning Commission item that night. On the 30th, at 11 o'clock in the morning, I have a Central Minnesota Emergency Services Board Executive Committee meeting, and at 1 o'clock, I had the full board meets. That meeting is still going to be virtual. On April 1st at 8:30 in the morning, we have a Public Works Planning meeting. At 6 o'clock that same evening, I believe it's 6, Morrison County Public Safety Conference at Camp Ripley. I would anticipate that the board has been invited to that.
What date was that again, Jeff?
April 1st, Friday, April 1st, and I want to say it starts... It's 5 o'clock. It's 5 o'clock, I'm sorry. It starts at 5 o'clock. And that's at the hangar at Camp Ripley.
Can I add something to that, Jeff?
Oh, sure, go ahead.
3 o'clock, there's an open house at the ribbon cutting for the fire department.
Yeah. And I...
Sorry.
No, I kind of knew that, but I don't have anything official on that, but we do now.
Yep, perfect.
Open house at Camp Ripley at 3 o'clock at the fire department. Moving right along, on the 5th of April at 9 o'clock in the morning, we have a county board meeting here in the boardroom. On the 7th of April, 10 o'clock in the morning, I have a Central Minnesota Emergency Services Board Legislative Committee meeting. That is virtual. On the 8th, Friday the 8th of March, 10 o'clock in the morning, I have a Central Minnesota Emergency Services Board RAC Committee meeting, and that is virtual. And Mr. Chair, that's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner Jelinski. Commissioner Wincher?
Okay, on the 28th, there's a Brainerd Mississippi River 1 watershed, and that's gonna be up at Crow Wing, and it has to do with soil and water. That's at 1 o'clock. It's just another watershed that they're gonna be speaking about. On the 6th, I'll be at the Little Falls Township meeting. I'll be meeting with them about the ARPA money. They're looking at putting some broadband in, so hopefully we can help them out there. Did you say the Public Works is on the 8th? Did you say that?
Public Works on the 1st.
Oh, wow, I missed that. Thank you. And I'm good.
What time is your township meeting?
7 o'clock.
Commissioner Lemire?
On May 28th, 9 o'clock, HRA.
March 28th?
Yeah, yeah. What did I say?
May.
Oh. No wonder. 9 o'clock at HRA. Then on April 3rd, there's a Norwegian Exchange, 5 o'clock at the ballroom. That's all I got.
Thank you, Commissioner Lemire. Commissioner Wilson?
I got Rum River, the watershed thing at 9 o'clock on the 31st, and that is virtual. That covers me.
So, on the 28th, the Crow Wing One Watershed, One Plan, or Mississippi One Watershed, One Plan, I will be at that meeting. Also, I would just like to say that on the 29th, on Tuesday, the 29th, at the Central Lakes College in Brainerd, there will be a forum on the U.S. Constitution with Buford Johnson speaking to that, and also to share with you, gentlemen, this evening at Central Lakes College, Senator Mary Kiffmeyer, former Secretary of State for the state of Minnesota and a current senator, will be speaking on redistricting, on explaining what happened with the court's decision and the legislative's decision to have the courts decide the redistricting boundaries for the entire state of Minnesota. And so that is this evening at 7 o'clock, and on the 29th, the Constitution is at 7 o'clock, in case anyone is interested in that. Other than that, I also wanted to say that that there will be from 11:30 to 1:30 a retirement recognition for Lynette Gessel and Rachel Barna on Friday, April 1st. That's from 11:30 to 1:30, and I'll remind you guys about that again after our Public Works Planning meeting that morning. That is all I have. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have a motion by Commissioner Jelinski and a second by Commissioner Wincher. Gentlemen, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, we are adjourned at 10:43.